I genuinely think that the internet has ruined a lot of people's innocence. And I know that sounds dramatic, but if you grow up online, you probably know exactly what I mean. Because for a lot of us, pornography wasn't hidden anymore. You could find it anywhere. You could have one wrong search, one weird ad, one friend at school showing you something, or one button that you clicked that said, "Are you 18?" And suddenly your innocence is gone before you even understand fully what you're looking at. That happened to me, and honestly, I don't think my life has really felt the same ever since. This video isn't really just about porn bad. I think the conversation is actually way bigger than that. This is about what happens when human intimacy becomes industrialized and turned into profit. This is Dowoge After Dark, and let's begin.
Elon Musk's AI tool, Grok, will no longer be able to edit photos of real people.
Do you remember the first porn you ever saw?
It was sex work and sex trafficking are two completely different things.
And they also have real parts of my real life, like my real son's backpack in the background that was kept in these photos as they were altered.
The weirdest part about all this is just how normalized it's all become. You know, for years, porn was treated like some harmless joke. You'd have Playboy, late night TV, you'd have boys will be boys, you got locker room culture, you know. But it was always framed as funny, rite of passage, like puberty, it happens to everybody. But back then, of course, there were still barriers. You had to actually look for it. And now I know that sounds stupid now in an age where everything is one click away, but that separation genuinely mattered more than it does now. Because for older generations, this stuff usually existed in hidden places. Maybe somebody found their dad's hidden Playboy in a drawer. Or maybe somebody stayed a little bit too late watching scrambled cable channels that they weren't supposed to see. Or maybe you were young, wild, and free, and you had a little crush at somebody at school, and your imagination filled in the blanks, because that's just part of growing up. But even then, there was still a line between fantasy and reality. There was an awkwardness to it, a human side to it. And the modern internet completely shattered that boundary into a million pieces. And there is no mystery anymore. There is no distance, no separation. Algorithms nowadays immediately feed people hyper-specific fantasies before they can even emotionally understand what they're consuming. And younger generations growing up online, mine included, we never really had a chance to stand against that. Because being 20, and I was born in 2006, I grew up through the early 2010s internet. And I can say something for sure now, kids are curious, especially during puberty. And that's normal, that's totally fine. But there's definitely a massive difference between healthy education and algorithmically feeding developing brains hypersexualized content 24/7. And what scares me most is just how accessible everything's become nowadays. Yes, these sites do say you must be 18, but let's be honest, a kid clicking, yes, I'm 18, that's not protection, everybody knows that. And now companies are scrambling for an ID verification and age checks because they know children are seeing this content constantly. But even then, it barely matters anymore because porn escaped containment years ago. And, unfortunately, nowadays, it's spread onto normal apps such as Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, and even YouTube ads, especially YouTube Kids. As somebody who uses these apps very often, besides, of course, YouTube Kids, I cannot tell you how many OnlyFans promotions I've had to block on Instagram and Snapchat. And I'm sorry, but I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't open social media and immediately see adults advertising explicit content in spaces that are filled with children. Same with Snapchat bots. random suggestive images, random sexual promotions. It always starts the exact same. They'll add me, of course, and then they'll message, "Hi, where you from?" And I'll be like, "Well, I'm from Earth, like the rest of us." And immediately, there comes a point where I just start going, "Are you an OnlyFans bot?" Because 9 times out of 10, they're gonna drop that big blue link anyways. And quite frankly, why? What do they get from that? The internet has become a machine built around attention, and unfortunately, sex has become one of the best ways to farm it. And I think the reason pornography became so powerful online is because it hijacks systems in our human brain that were unfortunately never designed for this specific level of stimulation. Human beings are naturally wired to seek intimacy, attraction, novelty, validation, connection, all of that. And yes, that's normal. And now the problem is that the internet has figured out how to mass produce these feelings artificially, where it's not just a video anymore, it's more now endless novelty, it's endless validation, attraction, connection, intimacy, all of that. And the human brain eats it up. Every new image, video, category, click, your brain just gets another hit of dopamine. Dopamine, of course, people naturally know as the pleasure chemical. And eventually that pleasure becomes more of anticipation, which becomes more wanting, and eventually now you're seeking out for it. That's why people keep scrolling even when they're not enjoying what they're looking at anymore, which I covered in the Shorts effect. The brain gets trapped chasing the same stimulation, and modern porn sites are designed around this on purpose. They have autoplay, recommendations, infinite scrolling, algorithmic suggestions. Wait a minute, does this sound familiar? Oh wait, 90% of our social medias are designed in that same way. It is the exact same psychological design used by our social media platforms. People will constantly keep clicking, they will keep consuming, and that dopamine hit will keep hitting the brain, so they're searching for the next best thing to look at. And when somebody gets exposed to that stuff really young, before their brain fully develops, yeah, that can absolutely affect how they view intimacy, attraction, relationships, and even themselves later on. Especially because of the way actual human connection works. Of course, it's a lot slower, it's awkward, it's emotional, and of course, it's imperfect. Nobody's perfect. However, algorithms, such as these websites, tend to remove all that and skip straight to what they call the good part. It's like intimacy, but instant gratification, giving you that immediate dopamine hit. And the scary part is your brain will slowly start adapting to this artificial version instead of the real one. The way relationships are supposed to really work is you're supposed to know the person and you're supposed to really, feel it. But there's nothing that you feel. It's just immediate dopamine. And social media somehow managed to make all of this strange stuff even stranger, because intimacy itself became its own market of content. People market their bodies like their products. Algorithms will learn what lonely people stare at, and platforms reward with money whatever gets clicks. And eventually you realize something really disturbing. Modern internet culture profits from loneliness. That's why this stuff gets pushed everywhere, because isolated people spend money, insecure people spend money, and desperate people spend money. For example, dating apps. Dating apps are designed in the exact same way social media is, where you pick up your phone and you just don't stop scrolling. And eventually, where that leads you is to one of three things. 1, more loneliness. 2, rarely, in most cases, either a hookup or an actual relationship. Or 3, the most likely cause, a paywall. There was a video that I was going to make a very long time ago about an old app called Wiz. This was essentially modern-day Tinder, but for children. I'll skip over the fun details about this because I'd rather make my own separate video on that. And the only problem with this is that the people making billions off of this whole situation know that these desperate people love spending money. And now we're living in a world where people are more connected online than ever before, and somehow lonelier than ever. Dating is and feels broken. People like to compare themselves to fake bodies, filters, surgeries, scripts, videos, models. And eventually, real life starts feeling less exciting than this big internet fantasy that we built upon ourselves. And nobody talks enough about how damaging that can be when you're young and impressionable, especially when your brain is not fully developed. I think a lot of people my age are emotionally confused because the internet exposed us to things that we were never mentally prepared for, and I know that personally. When I was younger, a creator that I watched went from making age-appropriate content to suddenly promoting an OnlyFans and posting thirst traps on their Twitter. And me, being an impressionable kid at the time, I copied that behavior. Not fully nude or anything, thank God, but still suggestive enough where I can actually have the images. I do, by the way. I just look back and I just think, Jesus Christ! For what reason was that environment so normalized for children in the first place? And more importantly, why did the internet make growing up feel like a race to become as sexualized as fast as possible? It's revolting. And somehow, in our present day, with our present generation, the internet turned all of this into comedy. Or, shall I say in layman's terms, gooning. People joke about trying to fry their dopamine systems because their humor becomes a coping mechanism. And nobody wants to admit that they're feeling mentally exhausted. So instead, people laugh at their own possible self-destruction. And that's depressing as hell. Where do I even begin with the industry? This whole video was inspired on a Reddit post. More importantly, many Reddit posts. More importantly, the replies of many Reddit posts. And dude, some of these stories are horrifying. I might have dug a little bit too far because this is the most disgusting and revolting industry that I've ever come across researching for a video in my entire almost decade of being on YouTube. There are people being manipulated, exploited, pressured into things, people going, quote, off script. Do I even need to fucking explain what that means? Non-consensual situations, language barriers being abused so badly that audiences can't even understand what somebody's actually saying. And all of it is getting buried underneath the billions of dollars that they make from pulling this pyramid scheme off. And that is the part that disgusts me the fucking most. When human suffering becomes something that can generate revenue, something that's profitable. Another thing I noticed while doing my research is that this stuff is how horribly trans people get treated in this industry as well. A lot of porn doesn't even treat trans people like human beings. They get reduced into categories, shock value, fetish material, clickbait titles, misgendered constantly, labeled with slurs, marketing in degrading ways because outrage and fetishization generate clicks. And the saddest part is that for most of these people, pornography becomes the first exposure they ever have to trans people at all. And unfortunately, it's not just trans people. It can be people of color. It can be any sort of racial stereotype. It can be gay people. It can be bisexual people. It can be family situations. Yuck. So instead of seeing these actual people as haha, hint hint, actual human beings, they only see stereotypes, objectification, or fetish content that is designed entirely around fantasy. And that damages people too. It dehumanizes everybody into products instead of just treating them like actual human beings deserving of dignity. Hi, I know this video is pretty fucked up already. This is post-production Dowoge, I think. This section is very, very, very fucked up. Please skip to this timestamp right now if you do not want to hear it. I'm going to sit here in silence for 3 seconds, giving you 3 seconds to skip to this timestamp, which is on screen right now, in case you do not want to see this section, because disclaimer, it's bad. Thank you. But somehow things got even darker. AI. This is where the internet genuinely started terrifying me, because people used to fantasize privately in their own heads. Now technology lets people generate fake explicit videos and images of real people, real classmates, real creators, real strangers, and unfortunately, I should never ever have to say this, real children. People started using AI tools to undress real people without consent, face-swapping people into pornographic videos, generating fake nudes from normal photos, and people online think it's funny, like it's some sort of joke, but it's not, because if somebody takes your face, your identity, your body, your personal frame, and then puts it onto explicit material without your consent, that is a violation. And what makes it worse is that minors have become victims of this stuff too. Literal children having fake explicit images generated from innocent photos. That's horrifying. That's not boys being boys. That's a level of dehumanization previous generations literally could not have ever fucking imagined. And the fact that there are actual websites making money from this is gross. Now listen, I don't think pornography alone destroyed society, but I do think that the internet created an environment, an unsafe one at that, where human vulnerability became one of the most profitable things on earth. Loneliness became profitable, insecurity became profitable, addiction became profitable, exploitation became profitable, and now we're raising generations of children inside systems designed to maximize stimulation before they can even emotionally understand what they're own consuming. And that scares the hell out of me because I lived through it personally. And a lot of people did too. And I genuinely think it changed us. Maybe permanently. And the worst part is that the people that are behind these industries will keep making billions and billions of dollars off of it and face zero repercussions. Because to them, human beings stopped being people a long, long time ago. All we are now is a product to be devoured. This has been Dowoge After Dark, and thank you for listening.